Watching the Queensland experience closely is New South Wales Liberal Senator Bill Heffernan. He chairs the Senate Rural Affairs and Transport Committee, which is conducting an inquiry into the impact of coal seam gas mining on the Murray-Darling Basin. I spoke to Senator Heffernan earlier today. He was in Canberra. Well, Senator, the coal seam gas industry has expanded rapidly over the past decade. Has it been adequately regulated?
The regulation of coal seam gas, like we were 100 years ago with the railways where you had to change trains at the border, simply needs to be harmonised, and at the present time it's sort of cowboy regulation in a lot of areas where they go in there with the fire and might and power of an international organisation with billions of dollars behind them in what they see. And in the case, the Energy Task important to pick off a district and pick off farmers, and I think there ought to be adequate consideration of the long-term impacts on the food task globally and Australia's part that's going to play in that. And if you go to the United States, you'll see where whole districts of agriculture have been put out of business because of the imposition of the preference for the global energy task as opposed to the food task. And I can assure your viewers that by 2050, with 9 billion people on the planet, that what's in your fridge is going to be far more important than what's in your garage.
Well, what are some specific examples, though, of what you see as poor regulation?
Well, there's no understanding of the impact on the Great Artesian Basin. We don't even know as a science what the recharge is. We've gone to a lot of trouble to cap and bore to the extent of many hundreds of millions of dollars, stock and domestic bores, yet we're going to let the coal seam gas business in there without even having to apply for a water licence.
Queensland does have some regulations in place, but are you also criticising the Queensland situation?
What I'm saying is that as part of the farm management plan for Australia and managing things like the Murray-Darling Basin, not just Queensland, this is a far bigger question than just Queensland, we need to have a clean sheet of paper, give everyone the opportunity to put their case and do it in a way that we come out with a result that's good for the nation, good for energy, good for agriculture. And so we're going to start hearings on an inquiry into the impacts of coal seam gas and obviously all the events surrounding that commencing in July. And we'll be going to places like Dalby and Chinchilla, Gunnedah and New South Wales. And we'll be happy to listen to all arguments.
One of the arguments is from the rural lobby group AgForce, who's saying the Queensland government has a conflict of interest, that it's regulating this industry but also benefiting from mining royalties. Are state governments too compromised?
Well, we'll come to that in the inquiry. I'm not going to get into an argument or a preposition before we've started the inquiry, thanks very much, as I'm the chairman. But obviously there are some serious issues, and if you learn from what's going on in other areas of the world, you can see that we don't want to muck this up. And I realise that there's importance for places like Gladstone, the development there, but at the same time there is a serious issue of sovereignty here for farmers. Obviously the might and power of multi-billion-dollar organisations with a lot of legal and PR and government influence, as opposed to what we as Australians generally have taken for granted. That is, when you go to Coles and Woolies and Aldi's and the various supermarkets, the food is there, the meat's down one aisle, the milk's down another, etc., etc. Well, by 2050, the equation is 9 billion people on the planet, unless there is a serious catastrophe, 50% of the world's population poor for water, 30% of the productive land of Asia having gone out of production, 2/3 of the world's population living there, the food task doubling, and believe it or not, 1.6 billion people on the planet possibly displaced. Now, what that says to me, that Australia is in an excellent position to service the market of Asia with 2/3 of the world's population. By 2070, for instance, China will have to feed half its population from someone else's agricultural resource. If we don't sell the farm to China, it presents a great opportunity to sell the produce of our farms to China. We need to both protect the energy task but also protect the food task.
Senator, what can the Commonwealth government do about this? Is there a role for them in coal seam gas?
Well, the question of what the Commonwealth can do will be part of the deliberations of these hearings, and obviously it took a long while for the states to understand that we had to standardise rail standardised road fatigue laws. I can't see anything wrong with standardising what would be the protocols around successful applications, not only for exploration, but for the mining of everything from coal to coal seam gas. I mean, the difficulty at the present time, and there's plenty of evidence which I'm sure will come forward at the inquiry, on some of the unintended consequences of coal seam gas mining, and I have to say the dollar, the almighty dollar, and the obligation of CEOs and board directors to maximise the profit for their shareholders is a legitimate concern for them.
The New South Wales government recently announced a 60-day moratorium on new coal seam gas exploration. Should Queensland follow suit?
The 60-day moratorium, I guess you could say, in New South Wales is breathing space and probably some sort of a short-term political fix, but it won't solve the problem, and that's what this is all about. We're coming to this inquiry with a clean sheet of paper, with a 50 to 80 year snapshot of where we're going to be in our capacity not only to produce energy but also to produce food, and see that in the context of the global task.
Senator Heffernan, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And no doubt there'll be a lot of Queensland interest in those public hearings for the coal seam gas inquiry in July.